Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network recap for UFC 326, Holloway versus Oliveira 2. I'm your host, Ben Duffy, soloing it tonight. Weird card, gonna be a weird recap. One interesting thing about doing these things solo, and it feels strange, is not to have to wear headphones. No Keith. So you all will have to let me know in the chat whether you can hear me all right, whether I'm too loud, too soft, too dumb. Anyway, I tweeted out kind of midway through the co-main event that if Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira end up giving us one of the 5 best MMA fights of all time, it might elevate this whole card to a C+. They did not give us one of the 5 greatest fights of all time. So right off the bat, Spaffron asked on Twitter, I'm pretty sure that's you. Are you Jam Bands Roasted on Twitter? Sorry if that's doxing you. You asked, when was the last time I gave an F to a UFC card? I've recapped over 200 UFC cards for Sherdog, and I'm not dead sure that I ever have. This is it. Like, this card was kind of a disaster on multiple levels. And I don't want to front load this recap just by listing all the problems for 20 minutes. Let's kind of talk about some of the fights and then kind of address those issues as they come. In the headliner, obviously, the BMF belt was up for grabs. Max Holloway defending, Charles the Bronx Oliveira trying to take it from him. So, on one hand, this was an utter show of dominance. The 3 judges for the main event that gave this 50-45 have a serious problem. Those first 2 rounds in particular were 2 of the clearest 10-8 rounds I can imagine. I mean, we're talking about 0 offense from Holloway. Like, he was taken down before he could land any appreciable strikes, both rounds, and then spent 4 minutes plus in distinctly disadvantageous positions, like side control, back mount, full mount, fully locked in submissions for minutes on end. Like, 95% of fighters would have been finished multiple times. To those saying, get someone like Dev on, Dev knew he could be on, and he was like, hell no. Dev was a grouchy boy in the chat, and I don't blame him, man. Like, so here's the question for all of you. There is no question who the better fighter was in the cage. Charles Oliveira just absolutely dominated Max Holloway. Differently, but in some ways in no less impressive a fashion than, say, Ilia Topuria or anyone else who's really, really blown out Holloway. My question for you is that a BMF type performance, or did we just maybe see the end of the BMF title? RC Nordo says it's the BJJMF belt now. BMF fights are scored differently. You cannot give a 10-8 for a grapple heavy round. Mr. C, I'm with you if you want to make that the rule, but unless the judges were handed a special brief for how to judge BMF fights, it was a massive failure of judging as well. It obviously didn't come into it. 50-45 versus 50-43 makes no real difference to these guys' records going forward. But if you know me, you know that bad judging, especially in like the main event, kind of sours me on an event, period. And this event didn't need any further souring. Like, this sucked. BMF is gone, boys. Mr. C, this is the end of the BMF title until Oliveira retires. Because really, what do you do next with it? It was never really an explicitly lineal belt anyway. Like, it has ended up thus far being contested entirely by current, former, or career lightweights. Like, I mean, is there anybody more BMF in the UFC right now than Yuri Prohaska? And yet he'll never fight for it unless it creeps its way gradually up to 205 pounds. But I can't imagine the UFC being quick to line up another BMF fight for Oliveira. Like, what if they get this again? And again, this was not a bad fight or a bad main event by most standards. Just, it it's the only thing this card was balancing on by the time fight night came around. Whatever the implications are of the BMF title, I don't think this lived up to them. I mean, off the top of the head, was there ever a takedown attempt in a BMF fight before tonight? AJ Paris, somewhere in round 3, the BMF belt died. Yeah. Sell the BMF belt to Fight Circus. Fight Circus and its parent promotion, Full Metal Dojo, probably the best follows on social media as far as organizations go. Like, if you're into like what Wendy's does on social media as opposed to, you know, like McDonald's and Jack in the Box, you'll like Fight Circus and Full Metal Dojo. Like, follow them, tell them Duffy sent you. Antoine Willis, how did I feel about John Anik calling out DC for trying to accuse Charles of making the fight boring? And again, I love grappling. Like, I don't mind watching actual just grappling competitions. I consider myself blessed, no pun intended, to get to watch Charles Oliveira do his thing at a level we've literally never seen in mixed martial arts in the entire history of the sport. I feel extremely fortunate to be here for the entire span of his career, like his prime, which, I mean, he might still be in his prime now. So there's nothing wrong with Charles Oliveira or his performance. Tyler Treese, one of the editors at Sherdog, made a couple of good points in the Sherdog Slack as the fight was going on. And he said, it's weird that Charles Oliveira is fighting this fight like it's a contender's fight when he is the farthest thing from a contender. Like, as long as Topuria and Sarukian and Makachev, if he ever comes back down, are up there, Charles Oliveira is not close to a title shot. So fighting Max Holloway like this was a contender's fight, kind of self-defeating and pointless in some ways. Like, the BMF belt is supposed to be a slobber knocker entertainment belt. Like, it's so I kind of feel it. But anyway, what Tyler said was that, and then he also pointed out, let me see, I think I put it down here. Yeah, like Corbier's actual recommendation that that Oliveira just kind of stall on the bottom until Mark Goddard stood him back up. Solid advice. Not in a BMF title fight. Like, that's... And hearing Joe Rogan kind of lose his cool for a second there and call the audience a bunch of casuals for booing. One, he's really old school to even have like a notion of casuals. Like, what does that even mean anymore? But also, as my co-host Keith is fond of pointing out, the UFC needs to serve the casuals. Because if you're watching this right now, if you're listening to me, like, you are a hardcore fan. You're probably going to watch most of these events no matter what. The UFC doesn't need to serve us. They need to serve the 16,000 people booing in the T-Mobile Arena. Yeah, like, the casuals are who pay your paycheck. Everyone at that table other than Rogan, who is like, fuck you, Rich. You know. Incidentally, I'll jump ahead to this. During the co-main event, during Raul Rosas Jr.'s post-fight interview, where he's talking to Rogan and trying 5 different times to give him an awkward handshake, you can pause on a freeze frame where you can see Joe Rogan contemplate retiring from the UFC color commentary role in real time, I think. Yeah, as Dev says, BMF, like, it was the casual belt. I do think Rogan's missing the point there a little bit. Like, as smarter people than I have pointed out, the UFC is on Paramount now. ESPN was a sports network. Paramount is an entertainment network that happens to feature some sports. I don't even know what else to say about this one, because normally when we talk about a main event, we're talking about what's next for the winner as well as the loser. There's usually title implications for regular lineal titles. There's not really that here. Like, they'll both go on to fight somebody good in their next fight. Any other general thoughts on this one, guys, before we move on to the co-main event? We're going to blow through the rest of these fights quick, or I'm going to do my damnedest to anyway. Stack6165 says, not a good card in my opinion. Like I said off the top, I've previewed and recapped over 200 cards for the UFC at this point. I'm not sure I've ever given an F to a card before, but this card was such a disaster that heading into the main event, maybe the most anticipated fight of the year, the best it could have done was bring it up to a C+ for me, and it did not do that. This card's probably an F. Co-main event, middleweight action, Caio Borralho fighting to get back in the win column, fighting to redeem the fortunes of the Fighting Nerds against Reinier de Ridder. And I mean, Borralho won. If there's a theme to tonight's card, it is fights where the winner didn't really elevate their stock very much. Like, obviously, you win, you survive, you advance. But I mean, how many fighters on this card that won left you feeling better about that fighter's, like substantially better about that fighter's fortunes in the division going forward? Like, let me know in the chat if you can think of any of them. Mr. C says this fight was the embodiment of middleweight. Spaffron, Caio got tired so fast, but they both did. I agree. And Caio has tended to get tired in fights. It's unsurprising. He is an enormous dude with a ton of muscle who he doesn't fight at a furious pace, but he fights a style that I think is taxing to his cardio. Just that much muscle, those hard swings. When he does go to the ground game, it is very horsepower heavy, like just hoist and throw people around type wrestling. So they both did get tired. De Ridder's gas tank, I said it on the preview, has been incredibly inconsistent. There have been some fights where he's just looked dead in 7 minutes, and then others where he's clearly the stronger guy in the later rounds. I don't feel as though I got a better handle on that in this fight. They both got tired. What I'll say is De Ridder's style, I think, leaves him pretty effective as a tired fighter. And obviously there are plenty of fighters who get tired quickly but are never out of the fight. Derek Lewis is, of course, the eternal example. The guy's breathing with his mouth open in 3 minutes, yet he has like double-digit knockouts in the third round or later in the UFC. Like, De Ridder, I think, is going to be one of those sneaky types for however long he sticks around, where, you know, if he's in a co-main, or I'm sorry, if he's in a 5-round fight and both guys look tired at the end of the third round, the other guy's probably in trouble more than De Ridder is what I'd say. UFC, more like Poo FC, says Jordan Shepard, 1264. I could not agree with you more strongly, sir. My countrywoman, Tiga, saying Garbrandt winning by balls of steel. I hope all of you at this point have Joe Rogan mentioning Thai Steel Cup somewhere on your UFC bingo card, because I think he said that like 5 times tonight. Borralho's back in the win column. Obviously, he's what, 7-1, 8-1 in the UFC now. Buy or sell that he fights for a middleweight title at any point in his career. Let me know in the chat. We'll throw things out there. Ray Rags, I'll jump back to this. We think Conor for the BMF belt next. Charles and Conor have history. Conor is exactly the kind of person you should have fight for the BMF belt if he ever fights for the UFC again. That is perfect, because the ideal use for Conor McGregor at this point, at what is he, 38, barely fighting anymore, taking movie roles where he has to roid himself up to like 190 pounds of muscle. If you use Conor McGregor at all, you need to have him in popcorn fights that have no divisional relevance. Even in his prime, Conor never defended a belt. Like, he is built for BMF belt fights. And whatever you may think of him as a person and as a fighter in general, the guy doesn't have boring fights. Like, win or lose, he's always been appointment viewing. So if he gets to the point where the UFC thinks they can trust him to make it through pre-fight testing, make it to the cage, not do anything extravagantly stupid, I don't know about next, but he's exactly the kind of person that that they should use for that. Charles and Connor, the thing is, if they book Charles versus Connor for the BMF belt, Charles is going to absolutely slaughter him, and the BMF belt will just suddenly become another belt for the UFC, just kind of a weird one that is not explicitly tied to a weight class. But, like, who's going to beat Charles Oliveira for the BMF belt? Only the people who would beat him for the lightweight belt. So the BMF belt has effectively become pointless as of tonight. That's it. Antoine Willis, do you think the UFC has really been that bad, though? I thought Mexico City was pretty good, and 324. The Mexico City card looked terrible on paper and ended up pretty entertaining in the moment. Like, it was a decent card. 324 wasn't a bad card, but I normally, by this far into the year, we've had at least one candidate for the card of the year, and if one of the cards we've had thus far this year ends up being on my like little 5-item ballot for the Sherdog Awards at the end of the year, I need to find another job. It's been rough. Did anybody answer my question about Bahalio as a potential contender? Scrolling down. Nope. So I'm going to take your resounding silence as a no, you don't believe in Caio Bahalio as a future title contender at 185. What if he moves up to 205? He would not be undersized. Like, yeah, he'd give up height and reach to the Johnny Walkers and Yuri Prochazkas of the world, but his speed advantage would presumably be even more of an advantage. I think his power would carry over fine. His gas tank would probably be better, and he would be fighting a group of guys that are just that much less skilled and that much lower in fight IQ. A lot of people on social media seem to think De Ridder fought dumb. I disagree. I thought De Ridder, for the most part, fought a pretty smart fight. Like, his limitations are what they are. Like, for what it's worth, he was as fundamentally sound on the feet as I've ever seen him. Like, but there's something to be said for when the differential in speed and explosion is so great that, like, De Ridder is standing there with his hands up, guard in the right place, and Bahalio is just so much faster that he's just splitting the guard and punching him directly in the face. The only thing I would throw out for De Ridder, and I'm always really slow to give strategic advice to professional fighters because I'm not one and I'm not a coach, but I've been watching this for a long time, and I'm certainly qualified to say, well, that didn't work. Bahalio had a hilarious disdain for De Ridder striking. I think the UFC booth commented on it a few times, where it was just almost disdain for De Ridder's striking, and I agree. But Bahalio did react whenever it looked to him like De Ridder was about to make a level change. And that may have been part of the reason his hands were so low. If that's the situation, I mean, what you do is you feint a level change and throw the overhand. You go all the way back to Randleman knocking out Crow Cop, a little more recently, like Frank Mir flooring Shek Congo before he choked him out. Like, just, you do the classic wrestle boxer thing. But it certainly couldn't have turned out much worse for him than the fight did. Tiga, another huge letdown of this era is no long-term champions. They all win the belt, then sit out or go for champ status. Yep. And I think a lot of you in this chat have been around long enough to remember when the UFC was extremely reluctant to let champions fight outside of their weight class. And I wonder now whether the decision makers regret letting that genie out of the bottle during the Connor and DC champ era, that led into Cejudo and everything since then. Because yeah, we have plenty of champs that as soon as they win a title, they're looking at the next weight class over, and it makes the product harder to enjoy for someone like me, like probably most of us, that watches this week in, week out. Making champ type fights, making super fights works great to pull in the kind of fan that watches 4 events a year, but it makes the divisions less compelling to follow for those of us that follow it like a year-round sport. And I know I'm saying that right after I went on a mini rant about how the UFC needs to serve the casuals, but they need to serve the casuals in the sense of turning those people that watch 4 events a year into people that watch 10 or 15 events a year. So having your titles mean something, kind of, you need some sort of narrative to this. Like, otherwise, if I just wanted to see people punch each other in the face till somebody falls down, I'd go watch World Star. 99% of those fights end in knockouts. If you care about skill and actually figuring out who the best people are in the world at this style of fighting, you need divisions with structure. You need champs that defend. End rant. Moving on. Rob Font versus Raul Rosas Jr. The narrative I'm going to disagree with, that I feel as though I heard out of a lot of media. I heard it out of the UFC booth for sure. Heard it out of a few fans, is this is Raul Rosas Jr.'s big test. Like, no, he failed. He failed his big test. I don't think there's any point at their respective UFC careers that I wouldn't have favored Chris Gutierrez over Rob Font, like short of maybe like the last 6 to 12 months. Like, Raul Rosas Jr. had a big test and he lost pretty convincingly. Against Font, if you're in the chat right now, and I can see a bunch of you are, grade Raul Rosas Jr.'s performance. Give it a letter grade. I'll throw this out there. Raul Rosas Jr. is an underratedly good wrestler. His striking still... Sorry, yeah, Christian Rodriguez. Tiga, thank you. Who was kind of the UFC's designated prospect killer for a couple of years there. But having said that, Rob Font's biggest Achilles heel as a fighter, and I don't know if he would be a champ or a perennial title contender if he had fixed this at any point, but it's real easy to point to his biggest problem. It is ability to defend a single leg takedown. That's it. And he switched camps. He's been training at TriStar with Firas Zahabi, which, depending on compatibility with the fighter, is one of the best coaches in the sport. And Font came out looking very different, had that very low stance, which definitely gave Raul Rosas pause early on. You could tell Rosas was like, this is not how I'm used to seeing Rob Font fight. But once you got past that kind of change in stance and change in movement, Font still basic failures to defend the single leg takedown. That, I mean, my co-host Keith, who is, a much better wrestler than I ever was and an active wrestling coach even now, he said, 8-year-olds like learn how to defend that. I wouldn't go quite that far, but certainly any good high school wrestler just has a better sprawl and underhook and whizzer than Font displays. And at this point, Font is 38. I don't think it's going to get any better, but it is disappointing that after the camp change, after the things that were at least cosmetically different about his approach, just as soon as Raul Rosas got in on a leg, that leg just buckled. Rosas is on top. And yeah, anything Font did from that point on really just delayed the inevitable. Kind of a bummer, because other things about Rob Font's game had been incrementally improving over the last few years. Font had always been a jab guy, low power, high volume, and he'd been flashing a little more power recently, partially probably just because he's getting older and grouchier, partly because he's been willing to swing harder, but none of it helped here. Yeah, Raul Rosas Jr. survives, advances. I said on the preview, this made sense as a matchup because Font is probably the most favorable style matchup for Rosas with that big a name and that highest standing in the division, and it kind of played out that way. Juan Cruz says Font is cooked. Here's the thing. Font is kind of like a crock pot meal in that he has been equally cooked for a long time. Like, he's basically been the same fighter for 5 or 6 years. It's a bummer on some level that he never quite broke that top 5, top 6 ceiling, but it's impressive on the other hand that he's still fighting this well at his age in a division that is not typically kind to the elderly, especially to people like Font who need a certain amount of speed, reaction time to make their game run. So yeah, this one played out much as advertised, I thought. Before that, Drew Dober versus Michael Johnson. The biggest upset of the night for me is that this fight took place at all. Like, I mean, stop me if you've heard this song before, but Johnson was a slight favorite when Keith and I did the preview a week ago. By the middle of the week, Dober was the favorite. By the middle of Saturday, Dober was creeping up on a 2-1 favorite. Typically, when we see that happen, the fight gets yanked by the UFC. And it's worth noting that the biggest sports books all closed out betting on this fight. Like, Noah Burnett says, not a rigged fight at all. People overreacting to odds shifting because of Dolgarian. People are reacting to odds shifting because of Dolgarian. I wouldn't say it's overreacting. Like, and for the record, so that I'm clear, I'm not saying that I think there was any malfeasance in this fight. Like, for what it's worth, that looked exactly like a Michael Johnson fight. And I say that as a guy that picked Johnson to get the win. But for Johnson to be winning this fight until the last 2 seconds was a very much on brand Michael Johnson performance. That's Michael Johnson. He is one of the most gifted fighters of his era in his weight class in the UFC. And he is prone to huge lapses in defense and fight IQ that basically make him like the Death Star. Like, if you can't find that little thermal exhaust port, you're going to die. If you find the thermal exhaust port, you ride away and get a medal hung around your neck, and Michael Johnson explodes. Michael Johnson exploded tonight. And fair play, credit to Drew Dober. It wasn't his fanciest knockout. Drew Dober has given us like some insane spin kicks, but that was one of his most brutal knockouts. That was a knocked dead Michael Johnson. Like, what a left hand. Wow. And just tight, compact, accurate. Like, each time they replayed it from a different angle, it's like that is as flush as I've seen Drew Dober hit somebody with a punch in a minute. Great stuff. Dev goes fishing. Noah, I appreciate the appreciation for the analogies, but Dev saying he's like Smog with no scales, so he just shoot an arrow at him at any time and he's gone. Not bad. Yeah, I will say that it was nice. It was an enjoyable, wholesome moment earlier this week when they collaborated on squashing the unfortunate meme of, Dober being into knocking out black dudes. Like, just, I love to see something like that squashed at the source. I like to see the actual impact of that kind of narrative on the fighter and their family, where Dober was talking about, like, my nieces are in elementary school and they have people coming up to them saying, hey, did you know your uncle is racist? Like, so I'm glad. I'm glad that was put away in just kind of a feel-good, wholesome fashion. And I don't say this easily, but I'm glad Michael Johnson got knocked the fuck out, because it eliminated any suspicion for me that there was anything weird about this fight. Like, Johnson looked fantastic for the first round. Then he got caught in very typical Michael Johnson way in the second round and legitimately flatlined. Like, if they'd had a weird kind of slap fight first round, and then Johnson just like lost by decision, or he got knocked out on something really iffy looking, then we're having a whole different conversation right now. But nope, that's Michael Johnson does not need weird guys backstage with envelopes full of money to pull off a performance like that. He's been doing it for 15 years. So it's a bummer. I picked that one wrong. But despite the fact that Johnson just lost the chance to have his first ever 4-fight win streak in the UFC, I'm still impressed that the dude is fighting as well as he is on the eve of his 40th birthday. Would never have picked Michael Johnson to be the last guy left from season 12 of Tough in the UFC. So, yeah, good on him. Prior to that, our main card opener, more middleweight action. Gregory Rodriguez, Bruno Ferreira. It is, I would say, rematch season this year in the UFC, but I'm going to quote Sherdog contributor Christian Stein, who is Brazilian, and say it's he match season, because a lot of Brazilians in rematches. Their first fight ended in a brutal first round knockout. Their second fight ended in a brutal first round knockout. Gregory Rodriguez, I don't know what the UFC's official punch strike stats were, but if you tell me that he cold cocked Bruno Ferreira with the first real punch he threw, that sounds about right to me. The amount of power this dude has is bonkers, and nobody's ever going to confuse him for Israel Adesanya or Sean O'Malley or Stephen Thompson, but he's tidied up his technique a little bit. He's getting to the point where he's delivering that kind of freight truck power without just stupid overswinging on things. Like the punch he knocked out Ferreira with, he was out, just weight properly over his feet, decent mechanics on the punch, and Ferreira was dead. Royded Obama is back. I mean, he looks like a photoshopped human being. He looks like somebody just asked an AI, give me swole Barack Obama. So glad he's back. Division's a fun place with him. So that's the main card of UFC 326. Should we talk a minute about the White House card before we speed run these prelims? All right, let's do it. The 6-fight, I would say main card, the 6-fight entire card of UFC Freedom 250. Oh, okay, one last question. Jordan Shepard, 1264. Why does RoboCop refuse to grapple? It is to make you angry, Jordan. He is, I think, a 9-time Brazilian national champ. He's a multiple-time Mundials champ. He refuses to grapple to make you angry. And to make me angry. So, anyway, UFC Freedom 250. I've got questions. Question number 1. I'm not saying it's bad, but this is the card that has basically cast a shadow over the first 6 months of the year for the UFC, because our whole thought, or the whole thing we were kind of told to understand about this for this whole year is, well, there aren't many title fights announced, and these early year cards are kind of thin because we're saving everything up for this massive historic White House card. Which, okay, cool, that makes sense. And fighters played into it. Like, basically begging to fight at the White House has been the calling for a Conor McGregor fight of 2026. Like, for the last 8 years, anybody in the UFC that won a fight between 145 and 185 pounds called out Conor McGregor as their I'm going to Disneyland moment. Over the last year or so, it's been, I want to fight on the White House card. This is what we're getting out of that. We're getting 2 title fights, and a good point that somebody in the Sherdog editorial Slack made, and I would look who it is and credit them, but they're my coworkers anyway, is you can make a good argument that both of these title fights don't feature the two best people in that division. Like Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje, braced for Topuria to be a minus 500 favorite. And then Pereira versus Gane, they might be the two best people available at that time, but considering that you've got John Jones floating out there somewhere, you've got Tom Aspinall with an indeterminate date of return from his surgery, the fact that you've got Francis Ngannou is now a free agent, Gane versus Pereira, kind of an interesting one. And then maybe the biggest surprise for me, look at those 6 fights. Give me the obvious win for an American. Like, this may be a quiet card. And it didn't need to be a bunch of like squash matches with native fighters thrashing foreigners. I hope we're past that. But I mean, the main event is going to have Justin Gaethje against Ilia Topuria. I haven't done my tape study yet, but that is going to be a slaughter. And that's your main event. So not only are you putting Alex Pereira below the main event of a card, which as far as I'm concerned should never happen again for the rest of his career, at least when he's fighting for a title, and your main event is going to have an American getting knocked halfway back to Flagstaff. So if Keith were here, you guys could all let him know that Bo Nickel is going to lose to Kyle Dawkins. I don't know if that's actually the case, but I know that you guys love to give Keith shit. So, I don't know. What do you guys think of the White House card? Yeah, Michael Chandler versus Mauricio Hufi. Michael Chandler is exactly the kind of person you want on the White House card. 1, he is a literal All-American. 2, he is a super well-spoken, just like, he's a guy that'll be great on the mic leading up to this event. Like, he can talk some shit. He will say some actual eloquent, heartfelt stuff about America, about his opponent, about whatever. But you put Michael Chandler in a winnable fight. You're going to pull Chandler off, what is it, like 2 years on the shelf to get blasted by Mauricio Hufi? Like, JSX, also known as Sherdog editor Jay Petrie, my homie, the guy that was just down here in Houston with me a couple weeks ago. Topuria is currently minus 600. I can't imagine it'll open much wider than that, but I bet it stays that way through fight week, and why wouldn't it? Like, Steve Garcia is the best shot for USA. Mr. C and the informality points out to me that Dawkins versus Nickel guarantees an American winner on the card. That is true. I heard a rumor that that President Trump asked for Dawkins specifically, which, one, weird. And I know that Anik and Rogan have both said that no, like, Trump was actually into the UFC, like he knows a lot of fighters, but even there, it's like, really? Did nobody take him aside and be like, you know, it's the other Dawkins that was the cop, right? Anyway, UFC White House. That's right. Chandler fought last year. Thank you, RBZ9991. We're going to learn a lot about Garcia, says IMM Report. Agreed. Here. Give me just a moment. Yeah, I mean, Garcia against Diego Lopez, we're going to learn whether Garcia is a fun story that's going to hit his ceiling really hard, or he's an actual contender against all odds this late in his career. Adam Duffy, 28-29, Kid Adam, my kid. Hola Padre. I don't know why I put that one on there. Make an actual comment about the fights, Adam. With Hoofy and Tapuria, I just realized that this is a reenactment of the Boston Massacre. Oh, Noah Burnett says, John Jones must be injured. I can't imagine money is a reason for him not to fight on this card. Jones has been begging to fight on this card, and Dana has stonewalled him. And I don't blame him, because here's the thing. John Jones is not reliable. That's just he's just too likely to get in trouble with the law. And this being the White House card, they're not going to be able to make any fight week late replacements. At this point, 80% of UFC cards have a fight fall off during fight week. 100% of UFC cards have a fight fall off in the month to 2 months before fight night. If a fight falls off the White House card 3 weeks out, they're not going to be able to replace it, I don't think. They're not going to be able to get somebody on the card unless they just get a pool of alternates, security clearance as just in case type fighters. If a fight falls off, it's just off. So that being the case, and knowing that you're only going to pack 6 fights into 5 hours or whatever to allow for kind of all the logistics and security you're going to need, why would you trust one of them to John Jones? Why would you trust one of them to Conor McGregor? That's why neither of them are on this card. So I agree that in a perfect world, they would have had Jones versus Alex. I think they would have been happy for Aspinall versus Alex. How much do I think Alex will weigh come fight time? Will he be too small for Gon or too quick at distance? I haven't done tape study for this. I'm just kind of going off of having watched a lot of these guys' fights and previewed, I've previewed all of both of their UFC fights. They both have joined the UFC since I started covering stuff for Sherdog. I think Alex is going to blast Gon. Like, Gon is an underrated grappler, but he's never been a great wrestler. And I don't think a just good wrestler is going to have an easy time getting Pereira down. And I think Pereira's come a long way from the guy that couldn't get up from underneath Israel Adesanya for the entire third round of their first fight. Alex is going to weigh like 247. Watch. My guess, this is the, guess the number of jelly beans in the jelly bean jar thing. I'm going to say Alex Pereira comes in at 238, looking exactly like he does at 205. And we're just going to realize what a fucking gigantic guy he has been at middleweight and light heavyweight all these years. But I mean, despite Gon being an enormous guy, like Gon is 6'5" and 255, 260 pounds. I think the reach is probably going to be about equal. I think Alex Pereira is a much harder hitter on a shot-for-shot basis, who throws a greater diversity of strikes. While he's not a defensive wizard as a kickboxer, he's at least as defensively sound as Gon. Yeah, I think this is a terrible matchup for Ciryl Gane. Anyway, UFC White House card. JSEX asks, what were my top 3 fights for the White House card if I could match make it? I'd have to sit and think about it for a second. I don't want to derail the show for another 10 minutes. I'm sure there's going to be exhaustive reactions to the White House card from Sherdog and every other outlet over the next week or so. Maybe I'll jump on a show with Dev, or I might be overdue to jump on Sean Sheehan's show with him. I've been trying to do that once a month. I'm sure I'll be talking about the White House card, and I'll have a prepared answer for that. Right now, my reaction is better than this, right? Jade Bunky, the man. No, derail the show. UFC 326 sucked. Yes, I agree. But as I've always said, previewing the terrible cards is not as fun as previewing great cards. But recapping terrible cards, equally fun in its own way. Top prelim, Cody Garbrandt versus Xiao Long. I picked Garbrandt. I ended up right in the end. This was one of the worst, ugliest, and dirtiest fights in years in the UFC. How? I'm gonna throw out a dude seriously. With no Keith, I knew I need to have at least one dude seriously. Xiao Long pointing at the canvas when he's fighting on a card that also features Max Holloway. Instant cut. Take that, walk him out the loading docks, lock the door behind him, and just leave him barefoot on the street like the UFC did to Johnny Walker sometime last year. Like, cut, immediate cut for pointing at the ground, especially in a fight where you committed like 4 flagrant fouls. Mr. C in the informality says, most entertaining fight of the night. I agree that it was entertaining in the moment, but not in a way that's, I'm never going to rewatch this. We just had Joanna versus Wei Li announced as an inductee to the fight wing of the UFC Hall of Fame. That's a fight that I rewatched anytime either of those women fought, for the remainder of their careers. And in the case of Zhang, even as she continues to fight. So I've rewatched it at least once or twice a year, every year since it happened. Like the night of that fight, UFC 248 was kind of the night that, Alex Morono and I first started to kind of become homies. So it's a good memory there too. But yeah, that's a fight whose greatness merits rewatching. It's entertaining even when you know how it's going to end. I'm never going to rewatch this. Like, I might rewatch clips of the most hilarious moments, but for one thing, Garbrandt vomited. Everything that I knew about the rules of MMA and their interpretation said when a fighter vomits, the fight is over. It's a TKO loss for the fighter that didn't vomit. Or, if it was caused by a flagrant foul, then I guess it would be a DQ win for the fighter that was fouled. I imagine if Herb Dean is called to the mat on this, he'll point out that, well, he vomited during an injury break, and so it wasn't technically during the fight. Because if a fighter vomits on the stool between rounds, as long as they can clean him up and there's no vomit on him, he rinses out his mouth, he is allowed to keep fighting. So I guess they're going to go with some interpretation like that. But as far as I'm concerned, he vomited in the middle of a round. Like, fight's over. It should have been a disqualification win for Garbrandt. Like, Xiao, not just landing repeated groin strikes, but landing the same groin strike repeatedly. Just, what garbage. Ugh. What a terrible fight. Fact or fiction, Nevada punishment punishes Dean. Fiction. You could insert name of commission, name of ref. My answer is always going to be fiction. And I don't hate Herb Dean. I don't know him personally. I don't hate him professionally, but there's got to be some level of accountability. The product will literally never get better until there is. And this was just another bad look. I was impressed that he finally started taking away some points, but yeah, this was terrible. This was yet another fight on this card where I came out of it not feeling especially better about either fighter. I actually scored this one for Garbrandt. I mean, your two feasible scores were really 28-27 Xiao and 28-27 Garbrandt, based on whether you gave one round to Garbrandt or you gave all 3 to Xiao. I gave the first round to Garbrandt. If I rewatch it, maybe I lean the other way. It was a competitive round, but send Xiao to PFL. No, because I still have to watch PFL. Send him to Power Slap. Send him to BKFC. Send him to something that Jake Paul does. Send him to something that I don't have to watch, because fuck that. Ugh. Before that, on the night of fights where even the winning fighter didn't leave me feeling much better about them, Dante Johnson stakes his undefeated record against Cody Brundage. Brundage stepping up on short notice. I mean, stepping up on short notice and having weird, foul-plagued fight outcomes are kind of how Cody Brundage is still in the UFC. Like, he is by all accounts a good dude, but he seems to be one of the lower level guys in the UFC. So not a stock up moment for Johnson, just having so much trouble with the guy. Because if you'd asked me before this fight, and for what it's worth, on the preview, Keith hit the skip button on this one, so we didn't really do a full breakdown. But the scouting report on Brundage is, for a former college wrestler, his offensive wrestling is basically invisible. Like, just one, he doesn't use it very often. He tends to fight in more of a bladed, karate style stance, which makes it really hard to shoot takedowns. And, his wrestling may just not be that effective for MMA. So it's not a great look that he shot and got easy takedowns on Johnson in multiple rounds. I think he had him down within like the first 30 seconds of this fight. That's not a great look, because Johnson's supposed to be a good wrestler himself. I kind of saw a ceiling on Johnson no matter what. He's a hell of an athlete. He has some gifts, but when you get down to it, he's a 5'8" middleweight. Like, Robert Whittaker was able to sort of compensate for being a 5'11" middleweight. Johnson is substantially shorter than that. Like, he's one or two losses away from basically being Deron Wynn with a six-pack. I can't say I'm high on Johnson after this, but looking at him, just looking at how muscular he is, especially like how broad in the shoulders and just like his chest, it would take a serious retooling of his physique to drop from 185 to 170. It would have to be kind of like the Roman Dolidze from light heavyweight to middleweight thing. I don't know what Johnson's future is. I don't know if he's just going to ride it at middleweight until he's either champ or loses a bunch of fights, or he's already considering a move. But again, if Dante Johnson had a real tough time against Cody Brundage, there are literally no easy wins at middleweight for him. This was supposed to be the easy win. He was a minus 800 favorite going in, and he definitely did not look like it. Yeah, Noah Burnett. Boom. Tiga, it's Cody Brundage, for fuck's sake. It pretty much sums it up, I would say. Dante could have finished the fight if he had just unloaded with ground and pound instead of trying to choke him in round two. Completely agree. And I didn't mention it at the time, but just to stitch back real quick, Raul Rosas Jr. could have made his fight with Rob Font a lot more lopsided, and I'd be having a whole different conversation about him right now if he had just punched Font 5 or 10 times per round on the ground. Like, hell, he might have gotten the submission because he would have given Font something else to think about. But yeah, so on my Bears list tonight, ground and pound. Like, remind me of that when we get to it. Before that, my man, Ricky Tercios, welcoming Alberto Montez to the UFC after, Montez won on the Contender Series all the way back in October of 2024, been on the shelf ever since. He had a fight scheduled and canceled last April, finally makes it to the cage, looking like the lost third Topuria brother. He was looking very, very fresh and clean, handsome fellow. And I didn't preview this because as the UFC's and the sport in general, as its entanglements with gambling become more and more problematic, I'm just going to not give predictions on fights for people that I know personally and see at the gym every week. Like, just I don't even want to go there. I'm happy to recap it, and man, yeah, it was a bummer. Ricky looked pretty good for the first round. I did think he lost the first round, but he was fighting a Ricky Tercios fight and generally looked pretty good. He was pushing the pace, giving Montez plenty to worry about, just kind of creating chaos and creating situations where he can grab an opportunistic submission. That's, that if Ricky Tercios sticks around the UFC, if he's still in the UFC 2 years from now, that's how he's going to do it. I did like that he showed that physically he should be fine at 145 pounds. he's a huge dude at bantamweight. Hell, he's taller than Dante Johnson. But yeah, shot a slow telegraph takedown right into the front headlock of a guy with an incredible front headlock. To the point where my BJJ instructor texted me. He's like, okay, we're definitely working on that anaconda choke setup this week, because that was smooth. And once he gator rolled him, like Ricky chose to nap rather than tap, but he wasn't going anywhere. That was an incredible sub. Good job. Yeah, Montez looked good. Montez, I've asked this question a couple times. I'm going to answer my own question. Montez is the guy on the card that won and left me feeling definitely better about his prospects going forward. It was kind of on Montez to prove that he was still the guy that he was in fall of 2024, to prove that he has anything to offer, maybe the deepest division in the UFC. He did all that. Like, beating Ricky doesn't make me think of him as necessarily a surefire future contender, but he definitely belongs. Because, yeah, people beat Ricky Tercios, but he thrashed him. So, yeah. Josh Hedges, one of the UFC's go-to photographers, took an incredible picture of, I'm pretty sure it was Kerry Hatley, basically checking on Ricky as he was choked all the way out. Incredible photo. Bummed me out. Again, he's a good dude. I consider him a friend. These things happen in mixed martial arts, but yeah, great showing for Alberto Montez. Before that, the first of the trio of Codys, Cody Durden against Niam Dragal Tumen Dembarel. And guys, Tumen Dembarel is not that hard a name. It's a long name, but none of the actual syllables are hard to say. Just write it down on a card. Tumen Dembarel. Jordan Shepard, Cody Durden, more like Cody Turner. I feel as though that's slightly unfair. Like, Durden is now 6-8-1 in the UFC, and he is the poster boy for better than his record looks. He is in just about every fight, but when he loses, like, he loses badly and spectacularly a lot of the time. Like here, this is... It's a rarity. It was a close, competitive 3-round fight for Cody Durden. Like, have we brought up that there were 3 after the bell shots tonight? There were a ton of after the bell shots. Yeah, just what slop? Tumen Dembarel. Refs need to take points for fingers and toes in the cage, says Henriquez 21. I kind of agree. I am not with, Sean Sheehan's the one that comes to mind, and I've heard a few other people suggest it, that when a fighter sticks their fingers in the cage, you should just put them on the ground, because I do think that is the ref interposing themselves in the flow of the fight too much. That is them basically saying, well, the attacking fighter would have gotten the takedown if not for the fence grab. I'm not sure I'm on board with that, but being quicker to take points, absolutely. Here's the thing. Eye pokes can be accidental. Like, I think they can be, they can certainly be negligent. There are fighters that are habitually kind of reckless about it, but they can be accidental. Groin strikes can absolutely be accidental. Like, you've got 2 people in motion, both trying to strike each other at the same time. Those collisions happen. There aren't really accidental fence grabs. And so they're basically always intentional, and they're almost always fight altering. So being quick to take points, I completely agree. I would love it if more refs just went, I explained the rules backstage. I gave you your first warning for grabbing the fence backstage. So if you grab the fence while your opponent's hands are on you trying to take you down, I'm going to take off a point immediately without pausing the action, which I wish more refs would do as well. Just gesture to the judges, say 1 point deduction, blue, and they keep fighting. RC, we glossed over it because I'm glossing over a lot of shit. I'm not used to soloing these things. I'm used to Keith kind of keeping me roped in. I'm drinking a very powerful seltzer, so yeah, you get what you get tonight. I definitely glossed over it. Jade, if cage grabs become automatic point deductions, they'll drop precipitously. Yeah, a point off a non-damaging foul would be huge. I agree, but as of right now, I would criticize a fighter that didn't grab the cage. Like, why wouldn't you grab the cage? You know that you're going to get at least 2 or 3 egregious fence grabs before, like, Herb Dean even says, "I'm giving you a strong warning." Like why wouldn't you grab the fence? So if you hate fence grabbing, that is the one not directly damaging foul that I think should result in quick point deductions for the reasons I mentioned. They're never accidental. They're almost always fight altering, you know? RC Nordo. Exactly. Much respect to Devin Tejada, to Sean Sheehan, to my Sherdog radio guys that do solo shows, because 1, it's tough to do. 2, you lose your sanity. You're just quacking into the void. I mean, at least I have y'all here to talk to, but on the few occasions that I've had to do a preview and just sit and talk at my camera for 2.5 hours, like my mind starts to break. Put plexiglass over the fence. Like, chain link started as a gimmick and ended up actually being a pretty suitable fight enclosure. Like, it's better than a boxing ring for MMA because it can hold the weight of the fighters. It's better than, I don't know, wooden fence because photographers can take photographs through it. But yeah, put plexiglass over the fence so you can't sink your fingers in. Imagine how disgusting that plexiglass would get after one fight. Just the sweat and snot and spit and blood. Oh my God. The entire cage would look like a microscope slide after like one fight. That's extreme. Yeah. Boom. Ninja Kitty Retro, bring back the Yama Pit. Okay. Sorry, everyone else. My listener of the night, Ninja Kitty, bring back the Yama Pit. You are retro indeed. Oh my goodness. What a terrible what a terrible event that was. 2008, never changed. Before Coden versus Tumen Dembarel, we had Sumudarji versus Jesus Santos Aguilar. Or, if you squint real hard, it was tiny size Stefan Struve versus Pat Barry. There should not be that big a difference in height and reach in a flyweight fight. Like, Sumudarji looked like he could have just done the big brother, like plant a palm in Aguilar's forehead and just hold him off like that, and basically did for large parts of the fight. Jesus Santos Aguilar made it easier for Sue than he needed to, but it was definitely a good example of range management by a taller fighter. Like, I always harp on fighters that have a reach advantage and never seem to use it, like that just let themselves get into brawls and get clipped by shorter, harder hitting fighters. Sumudarji knows what his advantages are and managed range well, has surprising power, has kind of that skinny man power where he never like knocked Aguilar down and like, oh shit, this is almost over, but just that kind of power where every time he hit him cleanly, you could tell that it changed Aguilar's game plan. And Aguilar's game plan was not great to start with. I mean, he's a 5'3" guy, this kind of hunched shoulders, like a little tiny Josh Emmett. And after about 4 minutes of this fight, he barely even tried to get into his best range, aside from just kind of dashing in periodically once or twice around. Like, not a great game plan by Aguilar. Sumudarji looked like you would expect a 2.5-1 favorite to look. Another thing worth mentioning, Tiga says, has such a nice ground game, used to be his Achilles heel. I agree on that as well. And kind of like his striking, a ground game that suits his body well. Like, he defends takedowns, or at least turns them into positional scrambles that work well for him, using a lot of overhooks and stuff that just kind of take good advantage of his long arms and his leverage, rather than just trying to have an explosive sprawl, and then just uses his length to have that kind of, what's his name? Like Jalen Turner top game, where a shorter fighter like tries to do a hip escape and he's like, I did the right thing and I'm still underneath this guy because he's so huge and can pelt me with strikes from like weird angles. So yeah, nice ground game. Used to be his Achilles heel. Good stuff. Aguilar is your spirit animal. I love it. Like his body style and the way he moves, he's like a little miniature Mexican orc. Like, busca los halflings. It's probably what they say to him in the gym. I don't know. I'm done talking about those two. Before that, a pair of extremely mid light heavyweight fights to open up the card. Rafael Tobias versus DR Nurgajai. Okay. This, it won't be remembered for it, but Tobias versus Nurgajai is one of the lower level fights we've seen in the UFC in a minute. Like, it was, both fighters had glaring flaws that were obvious right off the bat, and neither was really able to take advantage of it. Like, coming into this, we knew that Nurgajai was a decent striker, just not a great striker, but a decent light heavyweight striker, like pretty fluid, through in combination, above average power, with terrible takedown and submission defense. And Tobias was this raw, ironically, since he has more career fights than Nurgajai, but raw, physical specimen, was a hard hitter. And once they got into the cage, it was obvious that Tobias had a serious speed disadvantage. So Nurgajai is just pelting him on the feet, and he couldn't take Nurgajai down. Like, Nurgajai is a guy that, by all appearances up until now, like a stiff breeze could take him down, and Tobias can't. Like, if you can't find a way to get in on this guy, grab a body lock, and just throw him on the ground, like, what are those muscles for? This was a terrible fight. And yet another one where, yeah, somebody won. It was uncontroversial, but I don't feel good about either one as a future top 15 fighter. Like, even at light heavyweight, where anyone is 4 wins away from the top 15. Like, just, yeah, this was kind of lousy. Before that, first fight of the night, also at light heavyweight, Luke Fernandez making his UFC debut, staking his undefeated record against good old Rudy Bellator, or Rodolfo Bellato. Well, Bellato is... Oh, last item. Yeah, Nurgajai had good footwork. In particular, Tobias made Nurgajai's footwork look good because he just kept chasing on straight lines slowly. And yeah, he made Nurgajai look like freaking insert name of great boxer here. Like, skip this one, says Jordan Shepard. Don't even mention it. Look, it's probably Rodolfo Bellato's last win in the UFC. So let me go ahead and give credit where credit's due. Bellato's got power. Like, I mean, you look at him, if he can't hit somebody hard when he punches them square in the face, I don't know what to say. So yeah, crushed him with that short left hook. I don't feel especially better about Bellato because, again, if nothing else, he should be able to knock out the average 205 pounder that eats a left hook directly to the face. And I feel worse about Fernandez. Like, I feel better about Fernandez than I do about Tobias, because Fernandez looks like a guy with legitimate skills and legitimate physical talents who just took a bad loss. And I mean, if anybody on these prelims is a future top 15 fighter, it might actually be Fernandez. Like I said, anyone at 205 is 4 wins away. He could bounce back from this and go on a tear. Like, he's young, he's gifted. Whereas Tobias, we saw the ceiling of his game tonight. Yeah, that's it. That is the 12-fight card of UFC 326. Let's get to the fun stuff. I'm not even going to do a cut list. Like, I hereby proclaim that I'm not going to do a cut list on any solo recap where somebody that I see at the gym lost really badly. That's my new rule. Let's do Bulls and Bears. Bulls, of course, things whose stock is up after UFC 326. Throw yours into the chat. I'll throw them up on the and I'll throw them, or I'll read them off or throw them up on the screen. Cut Keith. Look, all I'm saying is, if Keith can't make it to a recap for a card where they announced Bo Nickal's next fight, you know it was something serious. So, thoughts and prayers to Keith Schillen. Cut list, Ben Duffy, take him out of his misery. Oh my goodness. I love what I do. My Bulls, Gregory Rodriguez. He gets back what was, frankly, kind of an embarrassing loss for him. And granted, he and Fajeda are now 1-1 and each knocked the other out with basically one big shot in the first round. But now I'm like, okay, if these guys fight 10 times, I bet Rodriguez wins 8 of them. Like, I don't need to see a rubber match, or as the Brazilians would call it, a Huber match. So that is bull number 1. Bull number 2, and I already mentioned him, Alberto Montez. He made a big splash at 145. You have to do a lot at any UFC men's division from 135 to 170 to really get on the radar, let alone break into the top 10. He made a big splash in his UFC debut. Good on him. My number 1 bull. Never let it be said that I'm unfair. Like, I take a few cheap shots on these things. They just, the shit I think is funny. But after just absolutely shitting on Bruce Buffer for managing to botch the easiest job in the world for all these many years, he pronounced Derek Cleary's name correctly 3 times tonight. If I can change, you can change, we can all change. My number 1 bull of the night, Bruce freaking Buffer. Like, I always love people who continue to hone their craft, even when they're clearly in the, in the later stages of their career. Fantastic work, Bruce Buffer. Once you get this whole pronouncing people's names right part down, the sky's the limit. So my number 1 bull, Bruce Buffer. Other people's bulls. Tiga throwing shade. Number 1 bull, Eddie Hearn. I mean, Eddie Hearn already threw an all-time dagger when Dana White blasted Eddie Hearn for working for his dad, and Eddie Hearn was like, Dana White works for his dad too. His dad's name is Turkey LL Sheik. Like, I need to put on a welding mask before I read Eddie Hearn's quotes going forward, because that burned me, and it wasn't even directed at me. Let's see. Other people's bulls. Sumudarji says, Jordan Shepard. I agree. Sumudarji looked really good. Noah Burnett agrees. Gregory Rodriguez. All right. Let's move on to Bears. Bears, of course, people whose stock is down after UFC 326. This could be a long list, but I am going to cut it to 3. Third, so lowest on the Bears list, the Johnsons. I would have expected to be saying the Codys, but hey, a Cody won. But Johnson's not a great night for the Johnsons. We had Dante Johnson, who again did not look great against Cody Brundage, and then Michael Johnson, who Michael Johnson did against Drew Dober. And yeah, so not a great night for fighters named Johnson. My middle bear would be Luke Fernandez. When you are carrying an O into the octagon, it's your UFC debut, and you're in a division like 205 that, again, is wide open, just begging for new faces. in the top 10, begging for somebody to win 3 or 4 fights in a row that hasn't already fought everybody in the top 10, getting plunked by a marginal talent in your UFC debut, that's a big stock down moment. And my biggest bear of the night, and I kind of led off with this, but the biggest bear of the night is the BMF belt. It's the UFC. They've never met a gimmick that they couldn't run into the ground, but whatever the next BMF fight is, it's going to be a whole different thing than it was coming into this. Because somebody finally fought for the BMF belt to win instead of to entertain. That's as simply as I can put it. Like Max Holloway pointing at the ground with 10 seconds left in a fight he was about to win against a guy who is a harder hitter than he is, that is BMF shit right there. Charles Oliveira is a great fighter. And for what it's worth, he is a BMF. Like, I am not taking away any of his BMF credit. He is one of the baddest motherfuckers ever to do this. I have gone on ad nauseum over the last 5 or 6 years about just how incredible and admirable his mid-career reinvention has been. So I am not saying that Charles Oliveira is not a BMF, but I'm saying that that was not a BMF performance. And if he defends the belt going forward, how excited are you going to be for it? Because he's either going to be fighting someone he can do that to, or someone who's a better lightweight than him and would beat him anyway for the regular lightweight belt, which he already held, which makes the BMF belt meaningless. So biggest bear of the night, the BMF belt. I think it's not gone, but it's gone as we knew it and loved it. Oh, let's see some people's bears. Jade Bunky, UFC matchmakers, UFC 326. Jordan Shepard, Reinier de Ritter. Here's the thing. I don't know if he got exposed so much as just he reaffirmed who he is. Because to me, he got exposed as the guy that we kind of knew he was. A guy who can be dazzling based on matchups. But people that are bad matchups for him, it's hard to picture him stepping up and figuring out a way to beat them short of his opponent making a huge mistake. So, yeah, he's going to be a guy that probably settles in for the next few years in the UFC as, somewhere between the number 5 and number 9 middleweight, or maybe even light heavyweight, and just doesn't really surprise us, until the wheels start to fall off. So I agree that he was a bear tonight, but I would take issue with the exposed part is the only thing I would disagree with. Jake C. bears himself for watching that. Oh, one last bull sneaks in. The Thai Steel Cup. Like, definitely, if you can buy stock in the manufacture of Thai Steel Cups, do it. Bears, Paramount Plus, and the point down. Gotta agree on that one. Here's the thing. The UFC now runs, 42, 43 events a year. It's such a fast-moving conveyor belt that something goes from hilarious to the normal to played out and corny really, really quickly. That's, like, how long ago is it that the point down was one of the greatest, most memorable moments in UFC history, and now it's something that we see lame fighters do literally 3 or 4 times a card. Yeah, like, I agree. Point down, big bear. Lights flickering during the prelims should have been a sign this card would be horrendous. Holloway has to be a bear. I'm there. I'm there with you, because here's the thing. I picked Holloway, and I picked Holloway expecting that both these guys were just gonna kind of go balls out and give us, give the people what they wanted. But even if you told me going in, no, Oliveira is going to fight to win, he's going to try to take Holloway down if he thinks that's his best route to victory, I probably still would have picked Holloway. Like, I picked this fight wrong. But having said that, he lost so badly, like to the point where the only thing you can really give him credit for is really good grappling defense. Yeah, it's a bear. The only saving grace is the list of people that watched this fight tonight and were like, oh, that's how you beat Max Holloway, I can do that, is not a long list. I'd throw that out there. I think we're about there. We're just under an hour and a half. We've covered all 12 fights. We've talked a little bit about UFC Freedom 250, which is, yeah, definitely the Operation Epic Fury of MMA cards. This is the timeline we live in, folks. Yeah. And listener of the night, I already told y'all it was Ninja Kitty for mentioning the Yama Pit. I am the mayor of Memory Lane at Sherdog. You give me a funny, great, or horrible old school reference, it's going straight to my heart. I already gave the card a grade. I don't know if this is my first F in 8 years of being at Sherdog, but it's definitely an F. You guys who stuck around for this, and there are quite a few of you, all get an A. Gold star. Highest marks. Definitely appreciate you guys. Coming up next week, the endless conveyor belt of UFC cards continues with UFC Vegas. What is it? 113, 114. UFC Fight Night, Emmett versus Vallejos. I'm on paper. It's rough stuff, but look out for that preview to drop kind of, Sunday night, early Monday morning. Keith should be back on the stick. We'll preview all 14 fights, and we'll talk to you guys next weekend. As always, thank you guys for checking in. I never take it for granted. I mentioned that recapping the terrible cards is as much fun for me as recapping a great one, and that is only because of you guys. Like, you literally make this worth doing for me. So keep being you. Check out the preview. Do hit like on this thing. It matters. The algorithm likes it. Leave us comments. It's what allows us to keep bringing you this stuff free of charge instead of behind the paywall. And yeah, enjoy the fights when and if you're able, when they allow you to. And I'll check you guys out soon. Good night.